A big thanks to Napoleon Grills for sponsoring this episode.
Prices are going up. We're paying more and more for our beautiful steaks every day. And of course, we all want this steak. But what are you willing to pay? This is a textbook steak. You find it in every picture. Every steak looks like this, even in cartoons. And they're absolutely beautiful. Because when we think of steak, it's supposed to look like this. But in reality, we're starting to pay more and more for these steaks. I love them. They taste great. They look fantastic. But what if I tell you that you can save money not buying this steak, but buying a good alternative? I'm gonna stick this in my pocket.
How much is it?
I'm not gonna say. This is like inside information. Like in the Netherlands, let me paint you a picture, Morsen. Morsen already knows that every Dutch guy knows what's going down. If you have a barbecue with your friends and you buy a steak like this, they want you to throw it on the grill first and then they want to eat it. But before this thing is done, they already had a couple of beers and they're just going like, oh, now I'm hungry and I want more, and they don't care about the quality and they don't care. Of course, they enjoy a good steak, but they don't really love it like you do. They just want to be fed. But what if I tell you, if there's a thing, if there are other steaks which are great, but cost less than a fortune. Steaks that you might have never ordered before, but which are really fantastic. This is the hanging tender, and it's extremely tender. Absolutely beautiful steak. Well, actually it's not. It looks horrible. Look at it. The thing is, like, when we think of steak, this doesn't come to mind. This comes to mind. That looks really bad. I don't know if I want it. It doesn't look appetizing. But in reality, it is a really, really good steak. It just doesn't look good, but we can fix it. The other one that I have is the petite tender. In the Netherlands, we call this the diamond steak. Fantastic, but again, it looks like a loin, like a tenderloin, and it doesn't look like really a steak. And you don't have to pay an extreme amount of money to have these beautiful steaks. This is a hanging tender and it looks absolutely horrible. We got a floppy bit right here and there's a tendon running down in the center, which basically is something that holds the muscle together. It's tough and you can't eat it. Maybe great for the dog, but not for us. You can also see that this steak has long grains running in the cross direction of the steak. Now I'm gonna clean this up and I'm gonna show you guys that we can make it look good. So the first thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna run my knife along that tendon. This is our first steak. There's a bit of silver skin right there. We're also gonna remove that. There we go. Square it up. And there we have it, our first beautiful hanging tender steak. Now there's this second part, which might even be a better part, because the grains are not as long, but it's a lot smaller than the other steak. So again, we are removing the tendon. We'll remove the silver skin. And look at that, we ended up with two beautiful steaks. Now this looks appetizing to me, and we paid a lot less for the steak. This is the petite tender. It's not actually that petite, but it's a great steak, super tender. You can also see that there's some cleaning up to do here. We gotta remove that silver skin. And once I remove that silver skin, it already starts to look like a much better steak. Of course, you gotta do both sides. Check it for silver skin, remove any silver skin that's on there. If you don't feel optimistic about doing this, just ask your butcher to do it for you. It will happily do it. Now there's a floppy bit with fat here, and I'm actually considering that as a present, because this is gonna crunch up while we grill that steak and it's gonna be so tasty. So I'm leaving that on, and removing that silver skin just makes this look like a beautiful steak. The petite tender, and it costs way less than the conventional steak. Now I've got these leftovers and they're not gonna end up as steaks, and you can feed them to your dog. Come. Because she will happily take them from you. But you can also save them up, turn them into a broth, or chop them up and put them in your bami or whatever, like a nasi dish, like a fried rice dish, whatever you want, whatever you fancy. Because This might look like waste, but it's actually not. So you don't have to throw that away and you keep the real value. But I just gotta hand it off, otherwise I'm gonna be in trouble with this beauty right here. All right, our steaks are all trimmed up. Now it's time to fire up a Napoleon kettle grill. A Napoleon grill is the perfect grill to grill our steaks on, and I actually made a whole video about how to do it on the kettle grill and what's my favorite way. So of course we're going to use that technique as I always do. And it all starts with an empty grill. Of course, if you have some leftover charcoal, that's just fine. But this is some old smoke wood. I'm taking that out. And then the first thing that I'm going to do is put in a chunk of smoke wood. And I mean a big block, because this is going to block the radiation heat for our reverse sear steak. The trick to run your charcoal grill at a stable temperature is just not to add too much charcoal. This is more than enough to grill a steak and do an indirect zone so you can have the perfect reverse sear technique. Light it up with your torch. And now I just gotta wait until this is fully lit up. But the beauty of this setup is that we got lit up charcoal, a little bit of smoke wood on the side, which is going to act as a barrier and gives us smoke flavor at the same time. It's gonna be so good. Can't wait. Like, we only have 2 steaks to grill up. It's not that much. I should have bought more. I could have bought more. Our charcoal is lit up, and now I'm gonna put the grill grates in. I got a beautiful cast iron grill grate, and that's perfect for searing steaks. Now I always like to put in a thermometer just to make sure that I get my temperatures right on the steaks. And especially when you got multiple steaks, you can just put them in. Put the steaks on the opposite direction from the heat. This is called the indirect zone. And now you can see why they all need their own thermometer. And what I also want to do is I want to make sure that my thickest steak is closest to the fire. So I'm just going to switch these around, put the thinnest steaks away from the fire, then our medium steak, and then our thickest steaks. I'm going to close the lid. I'm going to let these smoke. I'm going to let the barbecue run at a temperature of around 140 degrees Celsius. So I'm closing my bottom vent to almost all the way closed. Top vent is just ajar. Just got the notification, one of our steaks is almost done. We're at 50 degrees Celsius. And what I did is flip the steaks around in the meantime, so you can see that the grill grates are in the steak. By flipping them around and making sure that they get evenly cooked on both sides, because you might get a little hotter air on top than you get on the bottom. So I'm gonna close the lid for now, and I'm gonna let them continue to cook until we hit a core temperature of 52 degrees Celsius. The last steak is done, and now I'm taking it off the grill, put it on the board. There we go. What a beauty. I'm gonna let these rest for around 5 minutes so we get the rising heat out. It has a core temperature of 52 degrees Celsius. It might go up to 54 while resting, but then it levels out, and that's the time where we can start to sear these steaks off. While the steak is resting, I'm going to open up my grill and let the charcoal become fully hot. So I'm also gonna open the bottom vent. And now I'm going to let my grill grate become nice and hot so we can sear our steaks off with a good hot sear. I'm going to pat the steak dry because all of that moisture is just going to take up energy while grilling and is going to prevent from building up a beautiful crust. Now it's time to start searing our steak. On a hot grill grate, just let it go. And as you can see, we have a lot more heat on our direct section than we have on our indirect section. Beautiful sear marks on our steaks. Time to flip it around, grill the other side, and our steak is ready. Look at that, super juicy, super tender, beautiful sear mark. Absolutely gorgeous. Now let's grill the rest of these steaks.
That's an important part.
Morrison, you sound a little bit hangry.
Yeah.
For the guys that don't know, hangry is hungry, angry.
Which one do you think looks best?
To me, this one looks best.
Yeah, for me definitely as well.
And the reason, this is like the hanging tender, and it was the widest part of the hanging tender.
Yeah.
And I really like the tenderness when I cut it. It's like,
Yeah.
it was like, ooh, this is gonna be buttery soft.
Yeah, yeah. I like the color more than this one.
The hanging tender is much more red because of more hemoglobins that there's in the meat. So this is like more of like farther away from the organs.
Yeah.
So it's like a lighter color.
I think we should start with that one.
You want to build it up.
Wow.
Cheers, guys.
That's a big piece. That's the sort of steak you drown in.
With this steak, it's flavorful, but the best way to do it is like cut a thinner slice of steak. Because like the fibers of the steaks are longer, they're more tough. This is like working part of meat. Slicing technique is important.
Yeah.
Like that's the reason why the French have a word for it. They call it tranching. But
So-
if you cut your steaks too thick, it looks good on Instagram if you cut your steaks thick.
Yeah.
But in reality,
No.
you don't want to eat thick cut of steak. There's only one thing to do next. Eat more steak.
There we go.
Better crust.
It's like,
Juicy,
yeah.
tender, nice crust.
Texture is on point, everything is on point.
This is a good one. This wins from this. That's already hands down,
Yeah. Hands down.
better steak. Comparing like the two hanging tenders to each other is like a weird thing to do, actually. Because that's not what this is about. Let's talk about money.
Yeah.
Because if you would buy a kilogram of these steaks, just like a kilogram,
Yeah.
and you would buy a kilogram of the other steak that we showed on the beginning, like that steak might cost you 70 to 80 euros. Dry age, intramuscular fat, beautiful steak, T-bone, the whole shebang. And then you have this, and it's gonna cost you around between 20 to 30 euros, depending on the quality of beef that you're getting. But if you get a really nice one, you pay 35, so which is half the price. I think this is good value for money.
It definitely is.
The big question is, what would you do? Would you pay 35 euros to get flavorful, crunchy, juicy steaks? Or would you pay double the amount to get a good looking steak? Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, then leave us a big thumbs up and a comment down below. Big thank you to our patrons and our YouTube members. Hope to see you guys next time. Until then,
Eet smakelijk.
and keep on grilling.